That's funny. Hello, folks. I'm laughing here. Not yet. Go live. Remove. For some reason, Facebook is mucking things up. It does that every now and then. I'll get that yet. Hello, folks. I'm Joe Wesley, and my guest today is
Gayle Goldner.
Thank you for joining us, Gayle, and also audience. Thank you for joining us. We start a little bit early for the early birds out there. That for those who are seeing us for the first time, welcome. I'll get into a more detailed format of how we do our program. For those who are coming back, second, third, eighth time, thank you for coming back. The concept here for our audience is how does one make an impact ahead of their competition in their market? And I believe each of us have an intrinsic, I keep looking at my clock, so that's what I'm looking off. I keep looking at my clock to say in a timely manner that now we're starting on time, 1 o'clock. So I'm going to go into more formal mode. This is Gayle Goldner taking her hot seat challenge for enhanced business success by discovering an ingredient of her secret sauce. And for those who are visiting us for the first time, the concept here is I will start off by asking Gayle, what is her favorite pastime? And I find this to be more meaningful than to say, well, what's your sign? Or tell me about yourself. Because people would talk about their third spouse, the 18 kids, the 8th successful business. But the key here is to get to know who you are, the person. And this is important because if you're going to make a distinction between your competition, the one thing they can't lay claim on, in this instance, there's only one Gayle Goldner. There may be others who do her profession or variations of it, but they will likely all claim they do better than she does at it. But nobody can claim to be a better Gayle Goldner than Gayle Goldner. So I'm going to ask you, we start off the rule of thumb. I ask her what's her favorite pastime. We spend about 15 to 20 minutes of this half-hour session. And then for the last 10 minutes, we go into her business and talk about that. If I'm good at what I do, and I think I am, my role is to discover from her humanistic side what unique value she brings to her business that gives her an edge over her competition. Now, having said that, I'm going to ask you, Gayle, what's your favorite pastime?
I'm a paper crafter.
Now, what does that mean?
I like to make handmade cards and do other crafting projects.
Now, does that mean the airplane you throw it and you toss in the air? Is that kind of the thing you're talking about? You're somewhat beyond
not airplanes, but using rubber stamps and various papers and different embellishments, things like that.
How did you get involved in that?
Well, even when I was a little kid, I was making with construction paper and crayon. I would make cards. But later,
now, excuse me, I have to interrupt to backtrack. I'm assuming even as a little kid, you weren't born 7 years old. So I'm curious about when you're 4.5, was there something about that concept that grabbed your interest?
No, I'm not really sure how to answer that.
I mean, do you remember the first day you picked, rephrase, let me ask that differently then. I don't remember the first day I picked up a crayon. This really isn't about me. Oh, but by the way, folks, every now and then I'll look down because I'll take notes because I have an awful memory of salient points of our conversation. But I'm curious. The question is, okay, you did this as a child, but there must be a gap of time before you reach that age of picking up your first piece of paper and rolling it as a ball and tossing it, whatever it may have been. That you saw somebody else do it, you were dealing with your time, you were by yourself. Was there something that got you on that path?
I really can't, like I said, I can't recall. You talk about memory, I can't remember back farther than.
Fair enough. But do you remember the age? Do you remember the age when you fell into it? You could say by my 6th year of birth, I was doing it.
I don't recall. What I can recall is just having a really big drawer in my dresser that was just filled with crayons, papers and that kind of thing. I can still picture that heavy drawer.
But let me ask you this then. I went to kindergarten. Some people don't have kindergartens, I guess. Did you remember going to kindergarten in terms of your?
Mrs. Fisher.
Okay. So by then, were you doing your drawing tools and paper tools when you were in the kindergarten, when they have those creative moments in class?
Yeah, art was definitely always probably my favorite subject, especially back then.
Ah, okay. So when you say art, were you a pencil doodler? You said crayons, I guess. That was more your thing.
Yeah, I guess crayons.
Okay, when you're doing crayons, they always say stay in the line. They would give you an image and make your colors here, make your colors there. I always somehow would leak out those lines. Where were you on that?
Oh, I definitely am not in the line kind of person. So my crafting friends joke because I'm always Gayle, always on an angle, so I'm always,
Ooh.
instead of things being straight, they're always a little tilted.
Now, I have to ask you, when you say that you always outside the line, was it you ignored it, it got in the way, you felt it was a better expression to do your own thing despite the
Yeah, I
lines?
always am someone who's always had to do my own thing. I was never
Okay,
on the straight and narrow.
fair enough. Were you ever critiqued for that?
Oh, I'm sure I was.
Fair enough. Okay, so you always remember a desk with lots of crayons. And by the way, did you ever draw on the walls like some kids
That's
do?
so funny that you say that because I
Hmm.
did and got punished, and I can picture having to take that off of the wall.
Ah,
And it was one of
now,
the few times where I really got in big trouble.
so I can't believe you drew on the wall just one time despite the punishment. I suspect it was a slow curve, a slow learning curve for you. Or was that true or no?
No, no, it was really just like a one-time thing. I think
Okay,
I learned my lesson.
well, fair enough. Now, did your parents, in exchange for that, they'll give you more paper to play with, to draw on?
Like I said, there was always lots to draw on. I
Oh, good.
never
Anybody in the family who were artists? Because I'm intrigued how, are you the only child? Are you the first? Was it to occupy yourself? How does that work?
No, I'm the youngest of 3. No other
Ah,
artists in the family. I mean, my
o-
mother did other types of crafting, knitting, quilting, that type of thing, but not paper.
okay. So once you developed, or it developed you, your
Mhm.
craft, is there a certain type of art you prefer to do? Because we're not getting to the paper design thing, because I think you were Crayola format, and then what took it to the more the paper side and less the Crayola side, from one dimensional, two dimensional to three dimensional. What happened there to get you there?
Well, when I was, I think, around 9, I took some art lessons, so I did painting, and then I really enjoyed when it came to painting, I really enjoyed watercolor.
Right,
So I did a lot of watercolor, and then when I was after college, I also took some watercolor classes, and then things kind of, once I started getting into the, working world, I really didn't have time to do any of that type of thing.
right,
And
okay.
then I can't really remember the catalyst for starting again, um, getting back into it.
Okay, I misunderstood. I thought when you said paper crafting, was that your initial statement?
Well, that's what I do now, I'm saying. But when I was younger, I also did some painting as well, some watercoloring. And actually, when you make cards, sometimes you do watercolor as well.
What is it you like about watercolor rather than oil?
Oh, because you can, again, when it comes, you talked about going outside the line with watercolor, you can make mistake.
Ah, okay. Doesn't mean like you can.
Same
I'm
reason
not,
I prefer to cook over baking.
okay. I hear that. Now you're talking to a guy who failed art in elementary school, so it's not that intuitive. You can't smudge oil paint outside the line. I'm not sure how that works.
Not in the same way. You really can't fix it in the same way.
Okay, I get that. So you were able to be more creative with water than you were with oil.
For sure.
Yes, and you don't recall what got you into paper.
I can't really remember. Sorry. A
Well,
lot's gone down since then.
that's okay, folks. I should also emphasize this is live. We don't rehearse. There's no script we follow. So any mucking through and stumbling through we go on this, that's part of the program. And it really keeps it real. My role is to connect. I don't claim that I see dead people, but I will discover something about you that manifests who you are, the person that gives you a distinct advantage over your competition in your market. So what I'm doing now is I'm searching around to learn something about who is this lady, Gayle Goldner concept. So you're allowed to be more creative with water versus paint. I get that concept. You don't recall when you first picked up paper. Let me ask you this. You got disgusted with something you were painting, or and you brought it up and threw it in the garbage can. You said, "Hey, I like how that design worked out." Was it something like that, or did you see something heard someone talk about it. I'm still trying to connect the dots between the painting side, two-dimensional, to a three-dimensional concept. If you don't have clarity on that, then I'll come back at it from a different angle.
Yeah, you'll have to try a different angle.
Okay, fair enough. So is there a certain type of sculpting, if that's a proper word? Because you said you did do sculpting at one point in your growth? No?
No sculpting.
All right. So let me work at this then. So do you recall the first paper, I'm assuming you work with paper, design that you did? Do you recall what it was?
No, again, I'm not like, I can't recall those things. Sorry.
Fair enough. So what do you like to do now then as a niche? Do you have a sense of the type of paper sculpting? Is that a proper phrase for it?
Yeah, again, I wouldn't use the word sculpting with it. It's really just like, again, like paper crafting. So I just, enjoy the concept of taking, for example, I recently had a friend who needed a card right away. And I was just able to, she needed it for a bridal shower.
Right.
So I was like, oh, I have the perfect rubber stamp that I love for bridal showers. And we happened to find this really pretty floral paper. And I was able to just like whip one up for her really quickly. So it's just, fun to see, you have a plain piece of paper that all of a sudden turns into this pretty card.
Oh, that's nice. So when you talk about floral paper, do you create like bows and ribbons and little trees and stuff like that? I mean, at different times?
No, I mean, I use ribbon, but I wouldn't say that I create things from the ribbon.
Okay. I understand. Do you have a favorite color? Or do you have favorite colors you prefer to work with?
I mean, I like teal, I like purple, but I really work with all colors because it really depends on what the card is for, like the occasion, and also if it's for like a woman versus a man. Obviously, that tends to, use different colors, or if it's for, a wedding versus, a baby. So kind of just depends.
Now, do you ever have I know there's some people this is not about me, but myself, I'm always function first. And my wife is always design first and how it looks first. And sometimes there's a conflict between those two in our dialogue. Do you ever find that type of conflict for you? Because you do indicate whether it's a bridal or a wedding or a graduation. So that kind of sets the focus. But do you ever have a conflict between design versus purpose? Or is that synonymous to you?
No, I mean, I'm definitely like your wife. I'm more about the design for sure. For example, you mentioned graduation. So a lot of times with a graduation, and you talked about colors, I like to use, like, if I know that they're going to like a certain college, I might pick the colors, they're going to Rutgers, then make it a red card or something like that.
I get that. Do you ever talk to your client to get a sense of their preferred color, to get a sense of what they like, don't like? Or is it more, it's going to be graduation, it's going to be bridal, here's what I recommend for you? Do you have an approach on how you task that project?
Not really. I mean, because I used to sell cards. I don't really sell them anymore. So to me, it's more now it's more for, friends, family, that kind of thing.
Okay. Now I hear that. But still, at some point, they're going to come to you. You have a reputation. Now, how many years have you been doing this for in a formal manner?
In a formal manner?
What I saw, folks, when I asked the question, I said, is that long?
I don't know, like 20 years, maybe.
Okay, that's a good period of time. Would you say that you're better at it now? Now, it's probably an obvious question to ask, but would you say you're better at it now than you were 12 years ago?
Oh, for sure. I've learned a lot. I was involved in a company. I used to sell, rubber stamps and paper and product, things like that. And, over the course of time, I've taken, classes, and just by meeting other people, for sure, my cards are very different now than they were in the past.
How so different? I mean, I would say better in quality, but when you say different, I'm implying it's different. And I'm not sure I don't know how to say it any better by asking the question, but if you were to look at yourself now and look at yourself, say 10 years ago, what would you say the difference would be in that 10-year hiatus?
Just more creative, just different types of utilizing maybe different product or different types of cards.
So I get the sense that the difference is you're always exploring.
Oh, for sure.
Okay. And the creative side of it, do you get a glow when you've done something job well done
Well,
environment?
for sure, definitely.
Okay, fair enough. So what I'm hearing is a progression of what you've done. Not sure how you got on the track, but you're still there. And that's okay. But you do take a sense of appreciation for what you do. You take the time to have a clear understand. Graduation. Do you get a sense when you talk to you said people you know mostly, so that may be an unfair question, but do you get a sense in the back of your head that Sue or Bob or Fred or Heather may like this type of design more than not? Or do you have a self sense of awareness value that you feel this is the product I know they're going to like, but without coming to them beforehand and say, what do you think? Is that a clear question?
Not really, like I said, because I'm just making them for the people in my world, you know.
Okay.
So, I mean, I just really do it more of like how I like it to be, and
Okay.
just hope that they like it and appreciate it.
I hear that. And that's, I hear that. Let me make a note. Now you say hope that they appreciate. Have you ever had anybody look at you and say, oh, rephrase that and say, oh, Gayle, that's very nice. Thank you very much. And then walk away quickly before they, one of those syndromes. Or do you, you don't
I have
know?
no idea, because, you know, I'm very rarely on the receiving end. You know, I'm not with them on the receiving end of things. So I
Okay.
really,
Well, let me ask you this. Do you feel that the inquiries, the request to do this type of work, has it increased over the last last 5 years has been unusual, but so over the last 10 years, would you say it's increased? There's been a static request for you.
again, like I said, there's very rarely, I haven't really had requests. Very few people ask me to make them, you know, for pay. I mean, I have
Okay.
like maybe one or two people.
Well, I mean, even family though. How do you have a small family? Do you have a large family?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
at my family, you know, actually, no one, very rarely, my family asks me to make cards. It's more
Okay.
other people.
So when people aren't asking you, do you design cards for your for experimenting, for challenges?
Like I said, very rarely, unfortunately, I don't really have the time. It's like that's been a thing that I've been trying to get it to put it back in my life, because it
Right.
is, you know, I find it so relaxing, and the creativity. So I try to do it. I've been trying to do it more, but
Okay.
again, it's really more on the occasion based, you know, when there is a, you know, a wedding or baby. I used to do it a lot more often than
Mhm.
and it's just
You,
something that I find that I do need to put more into my life.
I hear that. You say you took courses for paper
Um,
crafting,
Yeah, just I mean, I have a group of friends, and so we go sometimes on retreats, and we teach each other different techniques.
interesting. It's a collaborative effort. Do you have a point person that takes charge of hosting the event and moderating the experience?
No, everyone takes a turn sharing
Nice.
different techniques.
Very nice. So that's something it's an ongoing process for you, although it may not be as busy now as it was when you say more free time.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
definitely.
Well, talking about free time, I guess we'll talk about the path to what you're currently doing. How did you get focused on that?
Sounds great.
No, I'm asking you. That's not a
You're
rhetorical
asking me.
question. So we talked about your favorite pastime, and you're
Mhm.
saying that now that you're having a business that's growing and building, you don't have as much free time anymore to follow your passion. What is it that's taking up your time?
So I help businesses systematize and organize themselves.
Okay. Well, that sounds kind of left brain as opposed to right brain. What do you mean by systemize and organize? I'm not sure what that means.
So, for example, one of my clients, I'm a chief operating officer, COO, for a small startup.
Right.
So, you know, they had a big idea, but after they realized that they needed help as far as you know, a project management system, and helping them, you know, figure out, you know, who's going to do what in the business, you know, which vendors they may need to have, things like that.
Well, I don't get a smooth dot connection between your favorite pastime and what you do now. Did you have
That's
prior?
'cause I'm not your usual person.
Well, that's why you're here, folks. We're trying to find out who is this unusual person. Could
So
you
that's why I have to have a creative outlet, right?
okay.
So that's why.
Well, but I'm asking your path though. How does for someone who doesn't know you and they say, geez, wow, she's what she does now. Did you stumble over a brick and hit your head and say, hey, I got to do this job? Or how did that work for you?
Well, I think so. My background, I was a meeting planner for 22 years,
Well, let me
and
backtrack. What was your major? Some of you went to college. What was your major in school?
psychology.
Oh, well, there's a natural flow. So you go into psychology, but you decided that in itself wasn't for you. So was your first job in the industry that you're doing now of sorts? How did that work out?
No, my first job is I was a child care counselor. I help parents find child care.
Okay.
But I really had a big interest in employee relations, and that actually connected a little bit with employee relations because we worked with some companies where they would have specific accounts, and I would work specifically with those employees to help them find childcare.
Okay.
So, and
Interesting.
then, but I also had an internship in college where I did some meeting and conference planning. So I had learned about that there.
Okay. So what is it about what you do now you enjoy doing?
Well, meeting planning actually is very similar to project management. So a lot of what I'm doing now is managing different projects. If you think about it, for each client, things about their business are actually, projects that need to be managed. So it
Right.
really, it does kind of connect in that way.
Okay. Do you have a sense of, I assume you have a protocol how you go about doing this managing projects, and I get that. Do you have a internal mantra? I'm not sure how to ask the question better, but do you have a style about how you go about it that you find works well for your clients, that's work well for you?
Well, just one of the one mantra in general is just like think things through before you say and do. So
Okay.
you, you really try to, for each one of them, think about what their needs are, and then go about trying to figure out what's the best, um, protocol for them that's going to work for them. Whether
Okay.
it's
Would you call yourself a facilitator or an advocate or a manager? Or do you have a flavor of how you approach your clients?
well, it's funny that you say that because each of them call me something different.
Mhm.
One client, I'm a COO. Another client calls me his office manager. Another client calls me his program manager. I also done. I'm currently doing some personal organization for someone, so it's
Mhm.
interesting. When it comes to title, it almost doesn't matter, right? As long as you get the job done.
I hear that. Do you have of the things you do? This is maybe a loaded question of the varied titles that you've had. If you had to choose the top two of the variations, do you find that there's some that you're strongest at, you have most enjoyment with, or you're better with? I'm not sure if I'm asking the question well. You talk about being organized. Do you have a sense if you had your choice, not to say the other avenues aren't good or aren't to your liking, but is there one that you get particularly enjoyment out of? Is to say, job well done.
Well, probably currently my job as COO of Up in the Chair,
Hmm.
because in that job, besides the COO part, I'm also mentoring interns, and that's something been really enjoying as a piece of that position.
Excuse me, you just threw a term on me that we hadn't heard before. Maybe you said it once before in this dialogue. Up in the chair. What's that?
So, Up in the Chair is an organization that uplifts each and every for their unique contribution to humanity, no one and nothing left behind.
Hmm.
So, and they have an internship mentorship program that there's a course on that. And then we ourselves use interns. So, and in that process, I've been doing a lot of mentoring.
Okay. And is it a generic mentoring? I mean, that could be anything. How to deal with pregnancy, how to deal with.
No,
Uh,
these are emerging
college.
professionals, so
Okay.
they're college students. So, mentoring them regarding a lot of professional development, time management, networking, just and again speaking of being organized and communication, things like that.
Now, did that concept that you're doing now, which sounds interesting, was it again something that you woke up zapped by lightning one day, says, "I got to do this," or was it something that floated you in that direction?
No, well, coming back actually to the meeting planning, the CEO of the company was originally wanted to work on a event inclusion course. And with my event background, she thought I would be a good, fit. And
Right.
then once we started working together, it was obvious that she needed some help with organizing her business. So then I sort of put that hat on as well.
Interesting. I've just made a notation here to myself. I have to make, and by the way, with an empty piece of paper when I started, and I've got scribbling all over it. That being said, what you just said hits me. You don't respect the lines. Back when you were filling in the boxes, the lines I anticipate now, it wasn't so much not being careful with your hand. It was something that either got in the way or had no meaning to you, those lines. So you're going to do what you're going to do to make it work. Is that a reasonable?
Exactly. Yep. You hit it on the head.
Fair enough. So what I'm hearing now is, although it sounds like you're doing different things, there really is a tie-in that the merging kind of occurs. And so I'm going to give a summary of your favorite pastime and where I see it now in your business environment. That first off, when you don't respect the lines, you made a comment about, you do your own thing, but you do it creatively. And you do it well enough that people will actually come to you either as a personal favor and for special occasions, by the way, maybe even a business format that would say, we'd like you to do this paper crafting for us. It's not a usual, for me, a non-artist syndrome. It's not a usual endeavor that I've heard about. So that in itself didn't discourage you that, geez, no one's doing this, maybe I shouldn't either. That again, you don't respect the lines, it draws you, you're going to go ahead and do it. And now you're in a setting where you do management of people, you're managing projects. You mentioned something about, briefly, I think, about event planning also. Is that something? Okay, I heard that. So what I'm hearing is it could be a goulash of one way of looking at it, but it's also a meal. And the meal is creativity. By definition, you don't respect the lines. It's going to come out well enough that people will want to come back and ask you more for it. And so I suspect when you do the management aspect of it, and even that, which is more of a, I think, a left brain format, somewhat creativity, you took it one step further in your up in the chair format. So it's always for growth, as I'm hearing it. It's always beyond the usual and customary, if I'm hearing it. Certainly not respecting the lines, am I hearing it? And by the way, folks, as I'm saying that she's got this grin for, that's it exactly. I dated to challenge that differently. It seems like you really enjoy yourself in what you're doing, besides being good at it. Is that a reasonable guess? Okay.
Yeah, well, I really like the fact that I get to work with a variety of people and a variety of different clients who have, in different industries.
I hear that. And so for the consumer, the business owner who's looking for someone to help their business, and they hear 10 people say the exact same thing in a month's time, I think Gayle, I'm clear that Gayle brings to the environment a sense of creativity, a sense of passion, a sense of not respecting the lines that will make a difference. And the fact that she's committed enough to even do programs of mentoring as a legacy to leave behind. It's not enough to just do the job to make the income. It's something she truly believes in. Am I far off on that?
No, definitely want to make an impact. It's great making an impact on, younger people. And, and I've seen it. It's great. I've seen them now, some of them that I've worked with get amazing jobs, which is, really satisfying.
Sounds good. Before I forget, folks, for those who are visiting us in the discussion side or the details side of our program, there is contact information for Gayle that you can connect with her if you'd like to learn more about what she does. For myself, if you'd like to be a member of the hot seat challenge, please let out your information to us. We do audit input. So if you have questions, comments, please share us and please connect with either of us if it suits your purpose. And hopefully it does. Even if it's a good or bad comments in particular. I know we're good at what we do here, but if you have something you're not clear about, you don't agree with, that's much more meaningful to me. And we do say we respect the clock. We've got 2 more minutes left here. So in the last time that we have, is there something, Gayle, you'd like to take us home with in terms of something you'd like to share or an observation?
No, just in general, I'm a major connector. So if anyone who's out there wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, you can find me on LinkedIn. And my tagline there is, why Google it if you can Gayle it? So if anyone
listen to that.
Yep. So I'm always open. If anyone needs help with anything, you can always reach out to me.
And I would soundbite that a little bit differently, that if you're looking for someone beyond, a lot of people will respect the lines. Nothing wrong with that, by the way, organized, structured. But if you want somebody who's creative, who has passion, then certainly Gayle would be my go-to person in that direction. So if you're not sure how to best spend your money, then I would say put your money on Gayle. And what was that tagline again that you use?
Why Google it if you can Gayle it?
Okay, fair enough. I want to thank you, Gayle, for being a part of our program. Thank you, audience, for visiting us. Please leave your comments. Please look at Gayle, see what she's born about. If you have questions for me, please leave that. And we will see you next Monday morning at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, 30-minute session live.